Welcome to the 21 Bridges Language Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Wilson, and today we're tackling something a lot of parents face silently. It's those first signs that your child is slipping into Spanish class. And by slipping, I mean failing. One minute they have an A, then drastically they have a D. And you just don't know how they got there. This is especially true for families within the private schools where academic pressure is super high and the support systems are limited those first early weeks. So, this episode, I'm going to be walking you through the exact steps to take in those first 7 days so you can stabilize the situation and quickly move confidently. Oh my goodness. We're in the month of December and it is approximately 6 weeks until the first semester is over. And this is the time where a lot of clients come into my virtual doors and they want me to work miracles. The only miracle I can actually work is kind of talking those parents through how to navigate this time of recognizing that their child has a D or even an F in Spanish to help them figure out how they can get on a track to their students, ending with a passing grade. And for me and my program, passing grade is a B or above. Sometimes the A is not possible depending on the timing of when we first recognize that the child is failing. So let's talk about recognizing those early red flags. So, Spanish is often the first class where grades start to dip, not because the student is lazy, not because the student isn't smart, but because language in itself builds on top of each other exponentially fast. I mean, I see Spanish language course or any language course adjacent to math. You got to know this foundation to get to that foundation. It becomes a waterfall learning system in school, the way it's taught. So, red flag number one, the student is missing homework assignments. Okay, so this is actually a pretty easy thing to miss. If your child is in Spanish 2, some private schools, Spanish 2 is taught in the language, in the Spanish language. If your child is in Spanish 3, it's taught 100% en español. So that's 100% in Spanish, which means it's really easy for a student to miss an assignment. I remember being in my Spanish college class in Spanish 2. My teacher was from Colombia. She was Colombiana. And I did not know what the heck she was talking about. She would write the homework on the board. She was also like a part-time lawyer. So she would write the homework on the board very intensely in Spanish. And she would say it super fast. To me, it seemed fast in Spanish, what we had to do. And I didn't even know what to ask. So it's not like I was a lazy student. I just had a language barrier. But for those Spanish 1 kiddos, sometimes it's easy to miss the assignment because the assignment is in the portal and then they miss the detail about where to find the assignment in the portal. It can happen. It can really happen. So, red flag number two is low quiz grades. Now, this one's a little bit more obvious because you know when your student brings home a failing grade if you're in that portal consistently, and they know that they've got a failing grade. So, that one kind of screams like, I need help. Number three, not understanding instruction. So again, for all my students who are in the Spanish 2 and above, this really applies to them. It is possible to to get on that test. The instructions are in Spanish or in another language, and they have no idea what the instructions are talking about. I mean, this kid is an A student, a B student. They don't fail. You don't know them to fail, but they're in the Spanish course and they're failing. And you're like, what? This is not my student. And you're freaking out. Sometimes they just don't understand the instructions that they're supposed to do. Um, and sometimes the instructions are written in English, and I'm finding that students just don't read the instructions. So a lot of my tutoring is just surrounding by what do these instructions mean to you, because they're very specific. Um, Number four, panic around speaking tasks. So this one, I try to get my parents to put themselves in the students' shoes. So not only do they have to present a concept in about a topic they're new about, they also have to do it in another language sometimes. So if your student is now having to do presentation and it's not in English, that causes a lot of anxiety. And usually they have to use the principles and foundation that they learned in the course that first semester or the first few weeks. And so that's actually a really, really understandable one. The last one is they feel lost when they're listening in class. So that's tied to not understanding instructions. If the teacher is not speaking in Spanglish and they're speaking mostly in Spanish, it's easy to miss those details. I would also say in classes like Spanish 1, where it's spoken in English, sometimes details are easily missed because there are a lot of students in a class. And it's hard to kind of understand the teacher's method of organizing work. And that may take a few weeks for the student to get used to. So let's talk about what to do in those first 72 hours when you realize your child is failing Spanish. And I define failing Spanish as a C, anything as a C minus or below. Okay. So the biggest mistakes parents make is they wait until the next test. So sometimes, parents come into my door and it's now like a month or two, a month or 6 weeks into the final, and they're saying, "Oh, I asked them, how did you get here?" And they're like, "Well, we've been kind of, I wanted to see how they were doing on their first test, but." You get so caught up in that waiting to see how they do because you have so much hope in your child, and you should, that enough tests are failed, and we find out by looking at the syllabus, the test way more than the homework assignments and classwork. So there was really no room to wait. So if your child is in a private school, especially, waiting actually guarantees that the grade can drop even further. So here's what I want you all to do immediately. Number one, sit down with your child calmly, calmly. I know as parents, we have standards, especially myself as a new mom. We have these expectations for our kids, but they don't align always with what the student is experiencing in their study life. So calmly ask what is confusing their child. This is the approach that we take here at 21 Bridges when the student comes through our doors and we find out that they're failing. There's a few things you can look for. If your child says, "I don't know," which is possible if they don't understand the language that well, you can ask, is it vocabulary? Is it grammar? Is it listening drills? Is it verb conjugations? That's pertinent information to know, because once you decide you want to find a tutor, you take that information to the tutor and let them know the focal points that the child needs to focus on. All right, number two, log into that school portal and review the missing assignments. You'd be surprised how many families find out that their students find out that they're missing like 10 assignments. And they didn't know that the homework was going to be graded. I mean, this happens so much with my students, and I really feel for them because it's just a lack of communication. And I think learning how to communicate with teachers on the student level is really important, and it's a skill set they take into them with their first job, their very first job, how to communicate with the boss. So once you understand how many missing assignments your student is missing, you can go to the teacher and communicate with the teacher, "Hey, how many of these assignments can my student redo for half credit or full credit?" For those assignments that are half credit, you prioritize those with the tutor and put a timeline to it. Usually, the timeline that the tutor sets should be quicker than the timeline of the teacher to anticipate any delays. If the teacher says, "I'm only going to allow 5 assignments for half credit, the other assignments I won't grade at all," you still submit those to the tutor so they can practice, okay? Because those same concepts are going to show up on the final and midterm week. So now that you are into the first 3 days with your strategy, day four, I want you to start with a simple communication. Begin day 4 or 5, depending on how long it took, with emailing the teacher, not with panic, but with partnership. Teachers, from my experience that I've worked with at 21 Bridges, want to know that you are in direct partnership with what they're teaching the students, even if you secretly don't like the teacher. So, the next episode, I'll teach you exactly what to say to the teachers when you do write that email. So, if your child is already slipping and you're catching this really late, it's okay. Explore support at 21bridges.us. Click the black button that says book call to speak to us for about 30 minutes to figure out a plan for your student.